We have a lovely debate on this podcast about burnout. So I want to ask you, what's your thoughts on burnout and do you believe in it?
Oh, God, yeah. I've burnt out many times.
Yeah. And what's your definition of burnout?
Burnout, I would define as where you've completely depleted your systems so much that you are predominantly operating in your sympathetic nervous system, so that everyday tasks just become too overwhelming. You wake up and the first thing that hits you in your face is your to-do list. You can't see the beauty in the day anymore because you have pushed yourself too hard and you haven't deloaded. I don't mean deloaded at the gym. I mean you haven't given yourself adequate space or rest. That's what I define as burnout. And
it's the most scientific response or definition I've gotten.
What do other people say?
It's just like they've hit a brick wall, or they've done too much work, or they've overloaded themselves with so much work that they just see this big black cloud in front of them, and that's their definition of burnout. But we always go back and forth on the podcast and even off the podcast, just back and forth on what we can actually define burnout to be.
But that was a pretty structured response right there. So when did you notice that you were actually achieving burnout, or you were hitting that burnout stage?
When did I first have burnout in my life? Probably first had burnout in my life at my final year of school, so like year 12. How I know I got it, or I started to experience that everything became so overwhelming, like I said, even just sort of everyday things. And my body actually told me I got glandular fever.
So big brick wall in front of you.
Yeah. Big. Yeah.
How long did that set you back?
Well, that was in it would have been in the first part of year 12 when we were doing all the assessments, etc. And I sat those assessments with glandular fever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That would have been fun.
Oh, it was fun. I had a lot of codral cold and flu.
Of course.
Which was the only thing that was getting me through.
Yeah.
That also because, I mean, you can't really pull back in year 12, can you? Particularly if you've got your exams coming up. But that, for me, pushed into chronic fatigue towards, like, after year 12. I started uni and then I deferred it for a year because I needed to rebuild myself, get back into my parasympathetic nervous system, and just have some balance in life. So I instead went and did some travels. I, worked in a bar job, sort of took it a bit easy to reset.
Would you say that from that first experience you were able to deal with it a lot better every other time that it happened?
Yes, because I could recognize it. The first time it happened, I didn't know what was wrong with me. I thought I was like, trying to get every test at the doctor. I was like, what? My mind is fuzzy. I can hardly read a few sentences. Everything seems so difficult. What is going on? I mean, mind you, I did have glandular fever, but it would have been in the lead up to that.
What were some ways that you overcame burnout?
Being able to, for me, I also get physical signs in when I'm getting burnt out. Like my body starts to feel heavy. I might, go to read something and find my eyes closing, a bit or something like that. Yep. Like I'm falling asleep even though I've slept 8 hours the night before. In my in day-to-day life, my personality maybe not feeling as upbeat or excited about upcoming events with my friends or family. These are signs to me that I'm starting to get burnt out. So that's how I recognize it, and the way I address it is just sort of pulling back to basics. So, okay, am I nourishing my body? Am I eating well? If I'm busy, traveling around, have I packed healthy snacks in my bag, etc. Am I getting to bed on time? Am I having space for my self, where I can let my mind unwind, whether it be gym time, reading a book, watching a Netflix film, doing some journaling if that's what I feel like. So I get back to basics on a protocol that looks after myself.
Yeah.
When you see that burnout though, the first time it can be tempting to have a bit of negative self-talk and be like, oh, why is this happening to me? I don't see it happening to other people around me. Am I a failure? You are not a failure. Be kind to yourself, look after yourself. And if you're struggling and you're getting that negative self-talk, picture the advice you would give to a friend. Like if a friend came to you and they'd had that situation, what would you say to your friend? Be your own friend.
That's good advice. I like that one. Do you feel like you can actually extend the time horizon between when you get burnt out the second time, third time? What I'm trying to say is, when you first got burnt out in year 12, the next time you got burnt out, it was probably a bigger load than what you were experiencing in year 12. Do you feel like you can actually increase the load every single time? Or increase your capacity?
You can definitely, like I've certainly increased what I can do since year 12. I have 2 children. That's an achievement in itself that I got here today. No. You can definitely increase your load, but with that being said, you have to be quite assertive about going, yep. It's almost like training in the gym. Like you can increase the load on your 3 compound lifts, but you need to plan deload week. So you need to look at your schedule. You're not a robot, You can't just push to the end. You need to plan in rest and recovery.
Yeah.
So the same way you would deload in a gym, like plan that in. Okay, I'm having a holiday week or I'm having an event where I just switch off. I don't, I don't take calls. Like I have a personal phone and I have a work phone for that reason. I want to switch off
from work.
That makes sense.
And that's really important. So you need to plan that mentally for yourself. Like you do updates on your laptop and it switches off and, it gets faster and better. You need to do that for yourself.
Yeah, big time. Have you had clients go through it and would you give them similar advice to that?
I have had, because I predominantly, I take a lot of corporate clients and yes, I've seen them go through it and I coach them in those weeks where they go, oh, it's so busy, it's so stressful, how will I exercise? And I say, we don't necessarily need to exercise this week. Let's use it as a deload week, but let's focus on your sleep, your nutrition, your self-care, your mobility. Like let's focus on what we can do outside of your business, your busy, business schedule or whatever.
So the planning comes into play.
Planning comes into play and focusing on what you can achieve, because when you get into burnout, it's all about, oh, I can't do it. It's too much. I don't want to get out of bed. What can you do?
And it's very important to obviously plan those deload weeks, you said.
Absolutely. A small, even a small trip with your friends, something to look forward to,
Just switch off from it all.
Just to switch off, to get present in life.
Yeah. I think a lot of people forget that, to have that little disconnect from the world a little bit because it's so hectic.
Well, we're so, as my mum says, we're in a generation of instantaneous gratification. Like you think to the olden days, you think of how they communicated. They picked up a phone. They didn't necessarily have, 24/7 connection with people.
FaceTime and location and all that stressful stuff.
It's pretty full on for your body, and you can get overloaded. And I was actually having this conversation with a girlfriend the other day, and she said, 2 girlfriends have said this to me. I'm sorry, I pulled back. I was going through something. And I said, please don't ever tell me you're sorry from pulling back from, communicating with people or going off social media. That is a normal thing to do when you go through a challenging time, and that is you prioritizing you and you protecting you, and you should treasure that. That is good.
Yeah.
And it's something that's lost in today's society as well.
That's correct. That's correct. We don't need to, if we're going through a challenging time, publish it on Facebook or put it out there. It's okay. Yeah, it's
Guys,
okay.
I'm going through burnout right now.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
pull back, and like it is good if you're going through burnout. It can be a bit challenging. Like confide in someone that you trust. It is a real thing. It is. Anyone who tells you it's not has, well, probably not experienced it. Lucky them, or they get it a lot themselves and they're embarrassed about it, which they shouldn't be.